since I've done a webinar.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We're just going to give everybody a minute or so to get into the room, make yourself comfortable. Thank you for joining us. I'm in kind of almost sunny Cornwall today, so perhaps drop in the chat where you are that you can see and hear us. You should be able to hear me and see Hamish and Amanda on screen as well. But let us know where you're calling in from today, just while we let everybody come into the room before we get started. Here we go. It's starting. Nicola's on the sunny Filed Coast. Filed Coast? I don't know where that is. How's your UK geography, Hamish?
No idea where that is.
You're going to have to help us, Nicola. See if she comments again. But Basingstoke, hi Keith, nice to see you. Blackpool, there we go. I knew it was northwest somewhere. Thank you, Nicola. Right, I'm sure we'll have more people join us, but I want to get cracking because there is a huge amount to get through today, and I'm really excited to be joined by Hamish and Amanda. They will introduce themselves in just a moment, but to kick off, if you don't know who I am, I'm Will Farnell. I'm founder of Farnell Clark. We're a firm based in Norfolk, and I'm also co-founder of App Advisory Plus. And App Advisory Plus has been set up to help accountants and bookkeepers make the most of technology that's available on the market, integrated to your cloud accounting suite. So we're delighted that we have Firmcheck as our app of the month for August. We're almost there. And what's really exciting is Firmcheck is launching in the UK at Accountex Manchester next month. So you have a sneak preview of the product today. Amanda's going to take us through that. I saw the product a few weeks ago. I'm really excited about what the guys are doing. So we have Hamish and Amanda with us. And we're going to talk a little bit about Hamish's background and some of the things that he's seen over the last few years. Amanda's going to take us through the product. But in terms of introductions, Hamish, do you want to give a quick intro, who you are and what your background is? It's an exciting one.
Oh, okay. So, hi, my name's Hamish Edwards. My background, worked as a chartered accountant, did some time in the military, then started my own accounting firm, met this lunatic called Rod Drury, started Xero, and then sort of retired about 9 years ago. And then in recent years, got involved with a company called ConnectWorks, which has morphed into Firmcheck.
Excellent. And we're going to talk about more of that time with the person you referred to as a lunatic. I won't say that, but and Amanda, do you want to give a quick intro?
Oh, thank you, Will. My name's Amanda. I'm the Chief Product Officer at Firmcheck and also at ConnectWorks. My background is product design a few years back in the SaaS space. So worked with other SaaS products. Most of them have had a Xero integration, interestingly enough. So there you go. always had that connection.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that, Amanda. So what we're going to cover, we've done some welcomes intros. I refer to this as a 15-year recap. Is it 15 years? It's kind of 15 years in terms of the world of cloud accounting as we know it now. Kind of where did we start? What's happened in the last 15 years, and having the opportunity to talk to today, too good an opportunity not to get some reflection on kind of where we are, where we've been, and kind of where we're going. Where does the profession go next from an innovation point of view, from a client service point of view? So we've got this 15-year recap. Where are we today? What's the adoption levels? What's happening in terms of innovation? What does the next 3 to 5 years look like? And then, of course, we're here to talk a little bit about Firmcheck. So why does the co-founder of Xero end up in corporate governance, risk management, compliance? What made that journey, and what are the drivers for that? What's happened with the UK launch? We'll talk within that about the importance of know your client and good governance, because Firmcheck ultimately is an AML solution for the UK market, but I'll let the guys talk a bit more about that. And then Amanda is going to spend 10 minutes or so just giving you insight into the product and what's coming. And then we'll kind of share what you can do to get involved with Firmcheck in terms of some launch offers and so on. And we've got time for questions. If you have questions as we go through, certainly as I talked to Hamish about kind of the Xero journey, chuck those in and I'll throw those questions to Hamish as well. So before we kick off, Amanda, do you want to tell us a little bit about Firmcheck? Because the likelihood is people on the call don't know who Firmcheck are because you're launching next month. So tell us kind of what the product is, the background, where it's come from, and why you're launching it in the UK.
Yeah, cool. So as Will mentioned, ConnectWorks was our original product, and it's still our product in New Zealand, which was entity management, and it had an AML component. So as we started talking to more and more UK accountants, the AML and the management of that seemed to be where there are a lot of unsolved problems. So from that, we've created Firmcheck. It's still very new, very recent. We'll be launching in September, and it's all about managing your AML requirements for your incoming clients and also your existing clients. So it's just pulling all of those checks and assessments and documents and records that you need into one place. Yeah, I'll share more at the end.
Perfect. We'll take a look at that when we go through the product. So that's our plan of action for today. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now so we can see each other here. So Hamish, 2007-ish, 2006, earlier than that, Xero. How did it come about? So give us the start point, because you were an accountant in practice, I assume at that time, and you mentioned in your own words you met this lunatic called Rod Drury. What happened? Give us the intro.
Okay, so it was kind of interesting, I guess. It's kind of interesting for accountants. How it all started, but a long time ago, probably around about 2003, 2004. I met Rod. He was looking for an accountant who could be more proactive and just keep up with him, I guess, in terms of the way in which he operated and stuff like that. And I sort of said, look, I think I can do that for you. So I started acting for him. He'd been reasonably successful with a technology consultancy business and had made a bit of money. And what he was doing in 2003, 2004 was sort of investing small amounts of money, reasonably small amounts of money, in a bunch of tech businesses in Wellington and New Zealand. In fact, yeah, I think they were all in Wellington, but in New Zealand anyway. And he needed someone to sort of oversee that the people that were running those businesses and spending his money were doing it properly. And he sort of asked me to do that. And that's where this idea of a virtual CFO came from. And as we did that, we started to needed to put into accounting systems in place for all of these kind of tech startups that were starting in New Zealand. And the incumbent product at the time was MYOB. And we started putting MYB in place for all of these small businesses. And Rod and I, well, Rod was kind of like, this software is awful. And I said, I know, but it's the best that we've got. And then he said, it would be way better if we could share it across the internet. And I said, yeah, it would, but it doesn't work that way. Wouldn't it be great if it could? So we tried to use, I don't know if you guys, many of your listeners and people out there remember terminal servers, but we tried to use terminal servers to try and connect to the software. Didn't really work. It was really awful. And so we went back to the old way of downloading data onto a data stick and putting it in a courier bag and sending it across town. People probably lots of your people on this webinar will remember doing that. It was pretty awful. But in that back then, that was the software. It was installed on servers, and the software actually wasn't that bad if you knew how to use it. It was okay. It wasn't pretty. But Rod and I sort of said there must be a better way to do this. We started looking for something, and we couldn't find anything. And strangely, one day, I think Rod was just bored at home in Wellington. So he actually wrote the first version of Xero himself. I don't know why he chose it, but it was brown and tan were the colors he used. I don't know where he got that from. But anyway, he showed me what he built and explained it to me. And I went, wow, that's really cool. And I think I remember saying, almost all of my customers could use this product. It's really cool. And it will help them to understand what accounting is a little bit more beyond just sending invoices out and paying people. And so at that point, Rod and I decided to start a company with the view of, this is a bit long-winded, so cut me off if it's getting a bit boring.
No, carry on.
We started this company. We called it Pacioli Software. Don't know if you've ever heard of a guy called Luca Pacioli, but he was an Italian, I think, Franciscan monk that invented the double entry accounting system. So we called the company Pacioli Software. But at the same time, another business that Rod was involved in called Aftermail was just starting to get going. And so Rod said to me, look, I'm going to put all my energy into Aftermail, not Pacioli Software. And I said, that's fine. My accounting firm is exploding. I've got heaps of work to do. Let's reconvene when it makes sense sometimes. So anyway, I helped him with Aftermail. I wasn't a shareholder in that business, and that business did pretty well. And in about 2 years, it was under 2 years, I think, 2 years and a bit, it was sold to a US company, and Rod had to do an earn-out. I can't remember how long it was. It was like 6 months or 12 months or something. But about 6 months into his earn-out, he phones me up one day, and I was actually fly fishing on a river in New Zealand with some mates of mine in the army. And he said, let's catch up this afternoon. I want to start the accounting software business for real this time. And I went, okay, that sounds cool. But I'm a bit busy at the moment. Can I meet you tomorrow? So I drove back to Wellington and caught up with him. And we had this meeting in a cafe, and he said, I want us to do the accounting software thing. And he goes, I'm like, okay, that sounds really good. And then he goes, I think we need $1 million. I went, okay. He goes, how much have you got? I'm like, not that. And then he said, and I think we should list it on the stock exchange really quickly. And I went, like, how quickly? He goes, within a year. I went, you're nuts. Let's give it a go. So anyway, we started. Rod knew a few guys that could basically rip in to start building the product for us. So we kind of got the first 4 people on board, and Rod and I at that stage were still sort of part-time. And then, yeah, we sort of got the prototype up and going and started to sort of see how we were going to evolve it. I sent the guys up to a local university to do accounting courses. I sat in front of them with a whiteboard and drew the dashboard with a whiteboard pen. So the dashboard that you all love on the front of Xero was drawn by me on a whiteboard. We knew bank feeds were going to be essential, so we investigated with the banks to find out whether or not we could get bank feeds and all that sort of stuff. And that's kind of how it all started. It came out of the need for an accountant and his customer to collaborate across accounting software and accounting information in a really easy, low-touch way. And the only way you can do that is with the internet. And so thank God the internet had evolved to the stage where it worked. At that point, there were almost no, we call them Web 2.0 or SaaS applications now, but back then no one really called them anything. It was just software that was deployed across the internet. And the only one in the world that was doing any good was Salesforce.com. Nothing else really existed. Everything else was pretty much in its infancy. And everyone told us when we started Xero that we were mad. Why are we doing accounting software that's so boring? La, 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 la. So anyway, here we are. However many years later, where are we? It's almost 20 years later, and Xero is now New Zealand's most successful company.
Oh,
if you're
frozen.
Oh, it was my Wi-Fi that I did say I'm borrowing an accountant's office, so a shout out to Tony Pierce in Cornwall, who's lent me his office, and they've got their IT guys in today, sorting the Wi-Fi. So apologies for the challenge. I'm not sure whether I've just dropped off again here, but let's. Can you hear me? Okay, Amanda.
Yeah,
I can
yeah,
see.
we can hear you now.
Excellent, good. So what I was going to say there, Hamish, is that so much of that is kind of resonates with my story in terms of when I set my firm up in 2007. It was exactly the same kind of conversation in terms of, look, how do I get closer to clients? How do I share data? And I did what you did, kind of went round and looked for something that I thought should exist that didn't. And those that have heard me talk before will know that we started our journey on cash flow in the UK, because we were slightly ahead of Xero landing in the UK. But it was the same drivers. It was like that ability you talked about, CFO services being the driver for needing access to the data, and it was the same for me. And like people said to you, you're mad. I had other accountants say to me, you're mad. It's a fad. It's never going to take off. And here we are. And we got some benefit out of being early adopters and early movers in terms of tech that we deployed. So that was the start. Everyone knows where the story ends, but I mean the question
Well, I
that
don't think it ended yet, but
no, definitely not ended. But where we are at the moment, and the question that I'm really keen to understand is you and Rod would have had a vision for the way that both small businesses, and I think I saw something in an article, Rod said that the idea with Xero is it gives the business owner the ability to do a little bit every day, in terms of not having to wait until the end of a month, end of a quarter or whatever to do all the things they need to do. So my genuine interest is you and Rod would have had a vision for how small businesses and accountants and bookkeepers would use vision. It may not have been on day one, but at some point along the journey, you'd have said, right, this is really going places. This is the way that we envisage people using the software. Are we living up to your expectation as accountants and bookkeepers?
yeah, so it's an interesting one, and I've just got to be a little bit careful here because I've been kind of out of the accounting software market now for a good 8 years, but obviously watching from afar, well, not from afar, reasonably close. I think the original premise, from my perspective anyway, was that I wanted my clients to understand accounting information easier.
Yeah.
They weren't trained accountants. They were builders, plumbers, owned taxi businesses, roofing contractors, consultants, all sorts of different people, but they weren't trained accountants. But that didn't mean that with a little bit of help and a little bit of guidance, they couldn't understand how useful accounting information could be for them in running their business. And so by building Xero and putting that dashboard in front of them and making it really, really easy for them to do their daily bank reconciliation, which you didn't call it a bank reconciliation, it was just going in and doing your bank update. It was just going through and checking all your boxes. But that's effectively what the small business is doing, right? They're doing their bank rec. So the minute that they've got their bank rec up to date on a daily basis, that means their payables and receivables are accurate. And if they know where their payables and receivables are and they know where their bank balance is at, they've got a much better understanding of their cash flow. And if you can understand your cash flow, your daily cash flow in your business a lot better, you're a hell of a lot better off than if you don't. So all of a sudden we were unlocking fairly simple but really vital financial information for small business owners. And then they sort of got interested in it. And so they really saw the value in the relationship they had with their accountant more than just this dude that does my tax returns. So we really wanted to transform the relationship I personally wanted to transform the relationship that the accountant had with the small business owner by using really collaborative and easy to use accounting software. We won't get into the single ledger and all that sort of stuff, but anyway, something that they could collaborate on together that would enable the accountant to provide more advisory services to their customer as opposed to compliance services, which is still important, and spend a lot of the budget that the small business owner had on just couriering discs around the place and spending time getting the data into the system so the accountant could then analyze the information and help the small business owner run a more successful business. I genuinely hope that, and I believe now that if you're in an accounting firm today, you've got so many tools at your disposal that you didn't have 20 years ago, to help you to be, I like to call it the virtual CFO. The reason why you're a virtual CFO is because you're not a full-time CFO for a single business. You're a virtual CFO for 100, 200, 300 businesses, and you will provide a level of service to each one of your clients commensurate to the budget that they can afford to spend on their accountant. So some can afford to spend £2,000 a month. Some can afford to spend £250 a month, but you should be able to put together an advisory service package based on those different budgets that actually help that business be more successful, not just pay the right amount of tax they should pay to HMRC.
Yeah.
And have we done that? Has the accounting profession done that? I think that I was astonished in New Zealand, Australia, and the UK with the entrepreneurism of early adopter accounting firms that absolutely saw the future and understood it and ran with the technology. They were not the big firms at all. They were quite often the smaller firms. They were quite often one-man bands, sole practitioners. And some of them actually saw the opportunity to leave their accounting firm and start a software business. I mean, Richard Francis is a great example of that with Spotlight Reporting. And so we kind of created this, I don't know, this industry in New Zealand, Australia, and the UK that just exploded, and sort of the rest is history. And I think for the most part, most accounting firms now have adopted web technology across most of their apps. I hope most of the software they're using is now web-based, because if it isn't, don't worry.
Yeah, I mean, when we were chatting before when we were talking about what we're going to cover on this session, I talked about the fact that for me, I'm still struggling to see that true adoption in the UK has got beyond about 20%. And it might horrify you to hear that there are accounting firms in the UK that are using Xero and don't have bank feeds connected, and don't have pre-accounting tools connected. And it's really quite depressing. But the reason for asking this question is you kind of hit the nail on the head. And what I hoped you'd say is that the whole point of bank feeds was the ability to be able to reconcile on a daily basis. And I say to firms when I talk to them, look, in your firm, or if you worked in industry, and it was your job to make sure the bank was reconciled, and it didn't happen every day, you wouldn't keep your job. So why is it, if we're doing outsourced bookkeeping services for a client, do we think it's okay to reconcile the bank once a month or once a quarter? And for me, it's like the tools are there. That's what they're designed to do. I mean, I talk about the fact that for me, Xero turned accounting on its head in terms of the prime data entry is now the bank data, whereas historically it was purchase ledger and receivables ledger. So the tools are there, and obviously you look at every other accounting player now. It's all, everybody's offering bank feeds. You had the vision to see the benefit of that really early on, and probably is one of the key contributors to the success of Xero, I guess, alongside the APIs and the ecosystem that's being created around it. So where are we going, Hamish? What's your take on the next kind of three to 5 years in terms of the profession, accountancy, bookkeeping, client expectation, all of this stuff? You were visionary 15 years ago, so crystal ball again now. Where are the opportunities? Where are the potential pitfalls? AI, is the tech adopting fast enough? Are we kind of stalling on innovation to let the service provision catch up? Whole bunch of questions there. Pick any of them.
I think that the easy thing now is for all accounting firms, well, the good ones anyway, to understand that the real benefit that they can provide their clients is advisory services to help their business be more successful, and that the accountant needs to come from the numbers because that's our background. And when you have a good CFO or someone good helping a small business owner or a medium-sized business or whatever it is, and you're coming from the numbers, then you will add value to that business. It will be more successful. There's no doubt. That's why CFOs sit right next to CEOs, right? It's absolutely critical that you have someone that has a hand on the numbers. So it's mission critical for the growth of any economy that you have good financial sitting along good entrepreneurship. The development of software and the status that it's in at the moment, in my opinion, is it's still in the early sort of that early maturity stage. It hasn't fully matured yet. I think that's reasonably accurate in New Zealand, Australia, and the UK. The United States is probably a decade behind the rest of us in terms of their adoption. So they've still got miles to go in the United States in terms of business application, web-based business application adoption. So I think what will be interesting in the short term, 3 to 5 years, is going to be seeing how more niche sort of software providers turn up to help accountants and small businesses work together on various different issues. I think the ability for someone like Xero to, the larger software companies now to innovate and evolve much more is probably going to be a bit limited. And what I'm seeing in terms of what Xero is doing specifically in terms of their evolution of product and things like that is pretty stagnant now. There are some really cool things it could do, and some things that I remember we discussed very early on in Xero that would have been great to do that they haven't done yet. So I don't know, maybe they're going to do some of that stuff. I hope they do. I think it'd be cool. I would love for Xero to basically become a bank and enable zero-to-zero transactions where people can pay each other and use their receivables to pay their payables. I think that would be unbelievably cool. Anyway, I'm not involved with Xero anymore. I'm just a shareholder. But anyway, I think beyond that, look, my view of AI is that it's so early. And I've invested in an Australian VC fund that is taking a view of AI and actually putting some early money into some very early stage AI, kind of like stuff that I can hardly understand, frankly. But it's this blended AI blockchain stuff that I think is going to be the next evolution. But that's honestly going to be, in terms of adoption into business applications that are going to replace the likes of Sage and Xero and QuickBooks, it's probably 10 or 15 years away before we see that next evolution of what does that look like. I don't think we can even really understand it yet. We need those basic sort of AI apps and things to come out that just solve really simple problems first, and then we'll see the evolution of it. But I think there's going to be something around a blockchain AI mashup that's going to be interesting. I can't really explain it yet because I don't really understand it that well, but I think that's going to be pretty interesting.
Yeah, and it's that. I mean, we talk about AI, and everyone's talking about AI mainly because of ChatGPT at the moment. It's like suddenly there's like everyone sees ChatGPT and thinks, "Oh wow, look at what this can do." The reality is, when we look at if we accept that my view of 20% adoption is right, then it's 15 years after you guys kicked off this opportunity, 80% of the market are still not understanding it, utilizing it.
Yeah, I'm really not sure if someone's going to, let's say, for example, you've got you've got a person that owns they own a decorating business, right? And they've got 15 vans and they've got a whole crew of guys, and they're stuck with a tax problem. They're going to trust a chatbot to give them tax advice? I don't know. I'm not sure that the world's there yet. I mean, maybe
No.
one day we'll ask AI to solve what could be quite a serious problem for us. But for now, I think experts will be experts, and perhaps what they'll do is they'll supplement that with some sort of AI. My experience of using AI to date is really that it's almost just like we all remember Encyclopedia Britannica, although most of the people on the call maybe do. I don't know how old they are. To me, it's kind of like Encyclopedia Britannica turned into a robot. And you can ask that robot anything you like, and it'll tell you what it knows. What it won't necessarily do is interpret it very far or apply a set of variables to that data necessarily to tell you how that might change it. That will definitely evolve, and that will change. And I don't know, maybe an AI bot is going to invent the next accounting system or something like that. One of the things that we are noticing across the world in terms of technology is a really interesting sort of move in the world of security. And what we're noticing is that a lot of the banks and formal institutions around the world, insurance companies and things like that, are actually moving away from smart technology to make life easier because they're finding that it's not as secure. And that to me is, one, interesting, and two, a little scary, because I like things to be easy and simple and fast. So I think we're probably going to see, in terms of in the world of security and information security, if you like, data protection, identity protection, and those sorts of things, I think we're going to see some reasonably interesting changes in that space in the next 5 years. But in terms of all the accounting apps you love right now, I mean, I just think if anything, there's just going to be a few more niche players come in to solve direct problems because that's kind of what happens, right? It's fairly normal for a product sector to get mature, and as it gets mature, you see niche players turn up. That's very normal in any market.
Yeah, and we're seeing huge developments for payment apps at the moment. That's kind of one of the big areas we're seeing, certainly in the UK, with open banking and everything else, and there's some great stuff going on in that space. Let's turn our attention to particularly the future for you guys in terms of Firmcheck. So how did you go, Hamish, from co-founder of Xero to working in corporate governance and risk management and AML and everything else? What do you know that we don't?
I probably don't know anything you guys know. I just don't sleep at night. No. So basically what happened was I sort of stepped down from Xero, and then it was kind of looking at some stuff to do. And I was talking to my friend, Andrew Finch, who's a lawyer, and I was discussing with him the changes to tax legislation in New Zealand. Sorry, for tax legislation around trusts in New Zealand. And then I was talking to another friend of mine who is pretty much the smartest guy I know, a guy called Jeremy Buckley, who's got a PhD in advanced mathematics, who I did Taekwondo with when I was at school. I didn't really understand what he was talking about regarding maths, but he and I shared the joys of snap front kicks together when we were about 15. But anyway, Jeremy Buckley, he was probably one of the smartest guys that we never employed at Xero, which was a bit disappointing because he wanted to do his own thing. But anyway, he and I and Andrew started a business that was set up to help New Zealand accountants and lawyers manage their trust requirements. And we called that business TrustWorks. It was a very simple software business. It wasn't, going to like set the world on fire like Xero was. It was just sort of something cool to do and was going to go reasonably well. That then evolved into company management. So what we found was the accountants were like, we like what you do regarding trust management. Could you do it for companies? So we went away and we worked on a software application to do companies as well. So we have a business in New Zealand called ConnectWorks. That is a software company that delivers entity management software to accountants to enable them to manage all the needs of a corporation. So change of director address, filing of returns with the company's office. We have a company's office in New Zealand. Any requirements that you have with a company, sending letters out to shareholders, doing director minutes, anything that is required under the Companies Act. In New Zealand, our software will help you to meet those requirements. That's fairly widely adopted in New Zealand, and we would probably have, I think, probably around about 30% adoption of our software in New Zealand with accounting firms, including the Big Four and the second tier firms, and then lots of other smaller and medium-sized firms, because it is quite a cool little application, and it solves some core product problems for New Zealand accountants.
Yeah.
Off the back of that was a request by the accounting community for us to build AML checks into our software. So we, just as a sort of an afterthought, we just built it. And we had that. And then about 18 months ago, we decided that we would see whether or not ConnectWorks was a product that accountants in the UK would like, with the intention of launching in the UK. I had quite good success in the past in launching a software product in the UK and really enjoyed it. And I thought, why don't we go back to the United Kingdom? That was a really good market, I thought, to work in, really good entrepreneurial accountants that kind of understood software. So I was like, why don't we take it there? And when we did that, we did some research, and we presented the product to the accounting community. And the accounting community basically turned around to us and said, we don't really think we need company management. We don't see that as a valuable product for us, but we really like your AML product. So what we decided to do was to not come into the UK with the company management product with AML, but instead just start with AML and then see where it evolves from there. We've got some great ideas about where we think we take the product after AML checks and AML management for accounting firms, and how we could help them. But at this stage, we're entering the market with a fairly simple but really effective tool for accounting firms.
Excellent. And that kind of tees up fairly nicely to let Amanda kind of share with everybody what you're doing at the moment. So Amanda, feel free to share your screen and stuff. And while you're doing that, I mean, I'll fill some time in terms of KYC AML. We all know something we've got to do. We have to do it. It's hugely admin intensive. It's something that is kind of one of those things we have to do. It doesn't add any direct value to us, particularly as accountants. So technology that keeps it all in one place, makes it easy to manage, is clearly hugely valuable. And we are limited in choice in terms of the UK market, generally with adopting bits of stuff that fits within other technology tools we've got. So over to you, Amanda. Thank you, Hamish.
Cool. Thank you, Will. Thanks, Hamish. Hamish, I feel like you did half the spiel for me. I don't need to do it, but yeah, this is Firmcheck. Really excited to introduce you all to it. It's an AML solution, and it's for accounting firms. Is my next button going to work? Oh, yeah. So Firmcheck's all about managing AML throughout the life cycle of your clients. So it's around those prospects coming in, managing AML workflows and kind of your overview of what's happening there. And once they've become clients, you've got all of your existing clients in Firmcheck as well, to manage those ongoing reviews. And how we do that, these workflows pull everything into one place. So you might previously have been doing them, verification tools. You might be documenting your assessments or your approvals in other places. So this brings all of those together. We use the Companies House API to pull in data if you're running your AML on companies that are your clients. We take you through risk assessments. There's the verifications and checks side of things, and that approval process. So I will jump into the screenshots. So this is Firmcheck. I've logged in. I've got I get taken straight to my prospects dashboard. So this is where you can see all your prospects that are in progress. You also have your a jobs tab, which is similar to like a client group. So you might have one client that has a number of entities or companies that you're bringing in together. And then you have your client space. So this is where all your existing clients live, and they're either coming up for reviews, or they're undergoing their repeat AML workflow, and they'll be here in this undergoing CDD tab. And then there's the completed CDD. So this is where all your ones that have been done that are up to date with AML will sit here. So the more that you have in here, the more you know that your AML is all up to date and ready for any audits or anything that you need to review. We also have a people tab, which just shows you all those people within those clients, entities, or companies. So you can see at a quick glance which ones have had their identity verified. Now, if I go back to the prospects, I'll take you through one of the onboarding workflows. So when you start a new workflow, you can either just manually create a party, or you can import it from the UKCH. I'm just going to give an example one, but it will pull in the data from the company's house, addresses, and who those people are, whether they're shareholders, PSCs, directors, officers. We have this is the whole workflow. So you have that first tab, which just has all the details about that company, and then you've got your AML workflow space. So you've got all these tabs down the side. It's really flexible, so you don't have to go through them in the set order. You can jump about. If your firm wants to set the level of CDD straight away, you can do that, while others might decide to make that level once they've gone through more of the assessment. The idea is that you pull in the company's office data initially. That helps you identify who are your CDD candidates that you need to do the verifications on. I'll go to the verifications at the end, but you do the verifications on those candidates. Then once you've done it on all the individual people, then you are looking at if you need to do, your source of funds, your source of wealth for the client, and you've got your risk assessment questions. So noting if there are any risks factors for that client, and then at the end of that, making that determination on the level of risk that client is at. Cool. Oh, skipped a few. So the really cool thing with these workflows is it's a collaborative thing. So you could have different staff going through and collecting the candidate verification information. You could have someone else going through the risk assessment. All of this can be kind of saved, and you can come back to it. And then once you get through that AML workflow, you can submit for approval. And when you set up your firm in Firmcheck, you invite the staff that you want, and you can set the different levels. So you can assign, maybe it's only your MLRO officer that can do the reviews and do the approvals. Maybe some partners can also do that. So when you submit for approval, you select who you want to review it, and that reviewer will get sent an email that tells them they've got something that needs reviewing. They come back into Firmcheck and they see that they've got that review. They can open that up. They'll get a summary of everything, all the verifications, all the assessments, the results of that, and they can make that decision of if they're approving or rejecting them. And so once they've approved them, they'll move into that existing client's workspace. Moving on to the verification. So this is something where we've lent on some integrations. So we have a biometric verification. What that means is we can collect, it'll get sent to the people that you want to send the check to, where they're sent a link. It opens up on their phone on a website, and it asks them to take photos of their IDs, their driver's license or their passport. It'll verify that that identity document. It asks them to take a live selfie video, and it matches the face of who took that photo with the document. You take a photo for proof of address, it verifies that address, and then once that's submitted by the client, it runs a PIP and sanctions check as well. So there's no app to download for the client, and there's no login required. They get a unique URL sent to them. So in the app, you go through and you select that full biometric check. If you don't want to do the client-facing check, you can also, if you're seeing the person in person and they're presenting you their documents, you can also just collect those in the product, so you can upload the documents as well. So this is the flow for the clients. They can go through the email that takes them to, there's some illustrations just to show visual indicators of what they need to do. It takes a photo. It uses the OCR technology to pull out the data of the identity, gets them to just review it, make sure it's all correct, and then it takes them through that face verification, asks them to smile, and then that's all done. That comes back into Firmcheck, and you can see what elements have been verified, and they also get a full PDF report of the details of all the verifications and checks and what passed. And that was a very, very quick overview of Firmcheck. So what's coming next? We, as Hamish said, we're just trying to get those core elements of this AML tool. But a few things coming up. We're looking at event-based AML prompts. So, monitoring the UK, the Companies House, if there's changes to to new people or some change that prompts a new AML task. And the other big thing is we really want to reduce that duplicate data entry, especially when firms already have some of that data in their other tech systems, pulling those in at the right moments, so to really help them get through those workflows. And then also we want to hear feedback. So as we said, we're launching in September at Accountex. So as we get more customers and hear what are those continued pain points and problems in this AML space, we're really open to hearing feedback.
Excellent. Thank you, Amanda.
Yeah, that's all.
So if anybody's got any questions, either to Amanda on product or Hamish on any things we've chatted about, pop them in the Q&A box. Whilst you're doing that, first question from me. You focused on the Companies House integration, which is great. Sole traders, unincorporated individuals. I assume with that there's a manual process where you can add somebody into product.
Yeah, exactly. At the moment, you can add any entity type, so all the individuals and charities and everything can be added manually at the moment.
Yeah. And just a comment you guys may well see it in the chat, just somebody saying certainly we'll check it out. It seems much simpler than the likes of Verify, Xero and Go Proposal, who are some of the products that are doing this stuff in the UK already. And certainly when I saw the product a couple of weeks ago, it felt very broad in terms of, even though it's AML, the amount that you can do within product, whereas lots of the other alternatives are products that kind of pull stuff from different places. And you mentioned double duplication of data. What's the thinking around kind of integrations, kind of deeper integrations, API integrations with some of the let's say, leading practice management solutions? Because that's obviously where that obvious crossover comes.
Yeah, there's definitely a few opportunities in that space, either with the practice management systems or even, when the engagement starts, right, which is sometimes in other in proposal systems. So there's a few opportunities there, or we've talked to some firms that are even using their like CRMs to kick off that process, and there's enough information in there. So it's often contact details that are the big one. But even being able to fill out the risk assessments, a lot of the information you might already know from, what was discussed in your initial kickoff meetings with your clients. So being able to pull that in if that exists somewhere, I think it's a cool space as well.
Excellent. So a couple of questions coming in. First one, would completing your risk assessment remove the need for uploading one to the ICB portal, which is the Bookkeeping Institute, or would we upload your one to their portal? I would guess this will depend on kind of what the requirement is of those individual bodies, but you are providing the compliance, aren't you? And the whole point here is that you're capturing everything in your platform.
Yeah. So the idea is that it's all in one place, and then there's easy exports for those things that you need to send. Where ICB is probably one we still need to go through in terms of what are the specific requirements, but we that's one of the goals, is trying to get things into the right format that they need to be for those firms.
Excellent. Next question: is there an adverse media check function?
That's something we're looking at with our checks. So for our September launch, we'll have the full biometric check, and then we'll also have a standalone PEP sanctions check. So adding adverse media is one that's on the radar as well. I'd love to know more on how you want to use that, whether it's just in the onboarding or existing clients. So my question back to you, Susan.
Yeah, and one here, a very good question, because I was going to raise the fact that you're doing quite a bit with content and training, and the question here says, I can see the software will provide AML training. Will this be live at launch?
Yeah, so good question. Right now, if you go to education.firmcheck.com, we have launched our first intro to AML course, and we've got like an intermediate and an advanced level one coming up in the next week or two. If you also go to the firmcheck.com website, there is a wait list at the moment that you can add yourselves to, and that will give you updates on when the new education courses come out. They're quite fun to go through. Everyone in our team's gone through them as well. There you go. Excellent. Yeah, education.firmcheck.com. Cool.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Amanda. So we're getting close to the end, so I just want to make sure that I cover all of this on. It does kind of just cover some of the stuff that Amanda's said just there. So there is free online AML training available, education.firmcheck.com, covering everything that you need, and more courses coming soon. In terms of the launch, so Firmcheck will be at Countex, stand F21. Clearly competitions, as you'd expect, to win some annual subscriptions checks, but also there's 5 free biometric checks for the first 100 customers to sign up from the 19th of September. What you can do right now is go to firmcheck.com and sign up for the waitlist. So when launch happens, you will be notified, and you can be one of those first 100 customers to sign up, and of course usual social media channels available there to stay up to date on what's going on. We have no further questions, so we've dealt with all of those. As you might expect, both Hamish and Amanda have joined us from New Zealand, so it's very late in the evening. So I must thank you both for staying up late and joining us. absolute pleasure to talk to Hamish around the Xero stuff. I've reminisced with Gary Turner on many occasions. It was a pretty small pool of us back in kind of 2009, 2010, when everybody just thought we were stark raving bonkers to want to try and do anything that was remotely different to what everybody's done before. So certainly from my perspective, thank you for having the foresight, Hamish, to kind of challenge the status quo and think about different ways that we can do things, because clearly Xero has led the charge. It has driven other software providers to kind of recognize what we need as a profession. We now just need to continue to educate the profession on what they need to do with the technology to live up to those original visions that you guys had.
Oh yeah, look, well, it was really refreshing. Sort of first of all going around New Zealand and then going around the UK and then going around Australia and meeting, colleagues and sort of explaining to them, why I thought the internet, or the way in which I thought the internet could help accountants help their clients. And it was really cool, the number of people that were just like totally on net with that and got it and saw the future and were looking forward to it. So, I mean, I'm really pleased that the accounting profession has reinvented itself from what it used to be. We used to have a pretty bad brand image, cardigan wearing, boring people, sat in the back office and didn't really have any social skills. And I think that the internet has really transformed our industry, especially in New Zealand, Australia, and the UK, and around the world. And I mean, I take my hat off to all accountants that have given it a go and got into it, because I reckon it's made our job as being accountants and providing services to our customers a hell of a lot more fun and a lot more valuable. So I think we've all helped a lot just by embracing the technology change. So thank you to all accountants out there who have gone into some sort of web-based technology, whether it's Xero or something else. I think it's good for everybody. So hopefully Firmcheck can join that. We've got some ideas about where we want to take Firmcheck in the future. I've got some ideas. I'm looking forward to coming to the UK in October and starting to meet some accountants again and discuss those ideas, and then start to get some early adopters using the product and giving us their feedback, and we'll listen and we'll evolve with you guys. I'm looking forward to this.
Excellent. So thank you everybody for joining us, taking an hour out of your busy schedules. Thank you, Hamish and Amanda. Good luck with the launch. I will certainly see your team up in Manchester in a couple of weeks. It's like it's not far off at all. So looking forward to that. I'll catch up with them there. Thank you again for everybody for joining us, and we'll let you guys go to bed. Thanks very much indeed, and we'll see everybody again very soon.
Thank you so much.
Cheers, guys.
See you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.